We just got our first look this week at the Spider-Man Brand New Day suits, along with some casting information, so I'm going to talk about it. If you want to know absolutely nothing about this movie going into it, you can count this as a spoiler and you don't have to watch this video. But like, we will see this suit on posters. These actors will promote the movie. Like, I don't think any of this will be a surprise. So this is not going to be me trying to pick apart scenes they're filming. Though I'm pretty sure this is this action scene that comes later in the movie or whatever. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying, it seems like these are the characters that are in the movie and this is what the suit looks like. And that's cool. I can speculate a little bit if you guys want. I'll speculate. Here, we'll do some speculation. But first, let's talk about the suit. It looks like a Spider-Man suit. It's one of the classic Spider-Man suits. They did a good job. I think this was very smart of Marvel to have an official reveal. So first they showed, the close-ups of the costume. Loved it. We saw the raised webbing. We saw some of the color. It looked like a traditional Spider-Man costume. I know some people have different opinions about the raised webbing. I don't have really strong feelings about it. On one hand, I get it. The No Way Home Final Swing suit, which I have here, is like borderline perfect, and it did not have raised webbing. On the other hand, like, this movie takes place some amount of time after that movie, and, it's hard to make a Spider-Man suit with raised webbing, but like, presumably a human being can do it since they do them in real life and they make them. So maybe Spider-Man just saw Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man's costumes, was like, oh, I want to have a little bit of that. And it does feel like this is the natural next step in the MCU Spider-Man, because like the same way that I think the MCU is moving away from costumes with lots of lines, vertical and diagonal lines, to just kind of break up some of the color, it seems like they're going for more classic, simpler costumes, and that's great. I think that's very, very good. Like the Gambit costume in Deadpool and Wolverine, like that's just the Gambit costume from the cartoons and the comics. Like, it doesn't have all the nonsense on it. And like, I think that's good. So this does not have the nonsense on it. It has different web shooters I think are kind of interesting. They're not the web shooters that we're familiar with, but they're web shooters, like the big mechanical web shooters. And yes, it has the raised webbing that is reminiscent of the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. I think the reason it doesn't bug me here as much as maybe it would in the movies is like, in those movies, Spider-Man draws the costume and then just, he's got it. It's his first shot at a costume. I like that we have seen Spider-Man develop a costume that was like the hoodie, which is perfect for like what someone who is not rich and doesn't have a fancy suit printing machine, what they would make. And then he got the very well put together Spider-Man costume from Tony Stark, and for a while he got upgrades to that costume. But like, he's not starting from scratch. He's seen that this is possible. So I don't know, maybe this is something that Spider-Man's just like, I'm gonna commit to doing this. And like, I'm sure cosplayers are able to do this. So I don't know, it doesn't bother me as much as like in a movie when Spider-Man just sits down and goes, I should make a Spider-Man suit. And the next day he has it with like raised webbing. It's like, where did you even get the idea to do that? And like, how did you do it? Versus this, where it's like, time has passed and he has seen a lot of other Spider-Man suits. And listen, I don't think these movies need to explain painstakingly like how every single element of the costume, like, he can just have a costume like this. But for people who think it doesn't look realistic, or like, it's like, why would he have such a designed costume? I think there is way more of a reason for that in the MCU than there has ever been in other Spider-Man material. But yeah, they had the video of Tom coming out through the doors, and then I believe the next day in Glasgow, they were filming scenes in light of day in the middle of the street. Tons of people all over watching this, and they were getting lots of great pictures. It seems like Tom was like out taking pictures with people, like little kids in Spider-Man costumes. That's great. He's always been really good at that. And I think, honestly, even if they hadn't shown off this suit in those official images, like, we would have gotten high quality images the next day that would have been as good. This doesn't feel like Deadpool and Wolverine, where like drones are trying to capture what would be a grainy, kind of out of focus image of the Wolverine costume. That's what everybody would see, wouldn't be on every article. Like, I think in this case, they may not have even needed to do it, but I'm glad they did. Besides that, we got confirmation of 2 actors that are going to be in this movie. Besides Tom Holland, and I think Zendaya and Jacob Batalon. Like, I'm not sure in what capacity they'll be in the movie, because like, yeah, it takes place in New York and they're in MIT now, but like, they do still grow up in New York, so they'll come back, I would assume, for the summer. Or maybe it'll just be flashbacks. Who knows? It could be anything. And we know Sadie Sink is in this movie somewhere, but we still don't have any idea who she's playing. And I guess we know John Barenthal, the Punisher, is going to be in this movie. But we got confirmation of 2 other characters played by specific actors. The first one is Mark Ruffalo's Hulk, which is something that has been heavily rumored. I don't fully understand it. I think that's fine. But the Hulk, and it seems like not just Bruce Banner, like, it seems like it will be the Hulk. But it was weird. There was an article that came out, I want to say this was Variety or something, where they were just describing that Mark Ruffalo will be in the movie with John Barenthal and Tom Holland, and they kind of jokingly said, like, there'll probably be a scene where like they all meet and then they fight each other and then they team up to fight the bad guy. But I did see some people online stating that as fact, like that was the plot. But that's just, I think the person saying like that's how these always go. The heroes, you know, based on like a misunderstanding in these Marvel movies, they fight each other in the beginning, but then they're friends and they team up to fight the main guy. So Mark Ruffalo's in it. Cool. I like him. I think he's a good actor. Seems like a nice guy, decent guy, and I want the Hulk to work. I think Smart Hulk works. I like Smart Hulk. I do. And I think we had a couple of movies with a savage, angry Hulk, but what we missed was the transition from Savage Hulk to Smart Hulk, and now it does feel like we're just kind of doing Smart Hulk because it's like convenient for the stories, just have him around and not have to worry about whether he's going to turn into a big monster again. And like at this point, I think people would like to see a Hulk go crazy and like try to kill everybody. That was a big draw of Brave New World, and I think it'd be cool to see that with the actual Hulk. There's many ways you could do it. If that is what they wanted to do, we can talk about some of them after we get through the next actor that was confirmed for this movie. Michael Mando, Scorpion is back. Speaking of things that fans have been complaining about forever, we're going to see that character. He was teased in Spider-Man Homecoming in the ferry scene, and then in the end, we see that he got a big injury, and he blames Spider-Man for it, so he wants revenge on Spider-Man, and then for a very long time, he was just absent from all of these movies. While we did not get that exact Scorpion in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, I do think that Scorpion was reminiscent of this Scorpion, and I think it's a little funny that we're finally getting a real-life Scorpion. It's going to be like, okay, well, he's got to be better than that, because we just did it in animation, and it was pretty cool. So, like, I kind of hope there's a different angle. Not that there fully needs to be, but it felt like with the Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man show, like, that was them going, you know what, we're never going to do it in the movies, so here's what it kind of would have been if we put it in live action, and now they're putting it in live action. So I'd be curious to see if it's the same thing. A lot of people like Michael Mando from his role in Better Call Saul, I believe. I'm not sure if he's also a Breaking Bad character. I have not watched either of those things, but I'm, looking forward to it. I'm excited to see what they do with this character. He's the one that I think you see in the most pitches for like fans like myself. Like, I secretly read all the Marvel movies, but like fans like me who make videos and like say what they want the movies to be about. A lot of people will say, like, we really want to bring Scorpion back in this one, so might as well. There were some rumors about other villains that are going to be in this movie, kind of specific ones. I'll cover them in what I'll call the spoiler segment, because maybe one of them will be a spoiler, although I think either there's big villains who will be front and center in the marketing, like we'll find out that they're cast in a day or two, or minor villains who won't matter, but I'll still wait. But I will say, like, this movie is coming together. I still don't feel like I know what it is, and I'm fine with that. Kevin Feige said recently that it's a street-level movie, which is another thing that fans have been clamoring for, and I think Tom Holland deserves a plain old street-level Spider-Man movie. It's a street-level Spider-Man movie that maybe will feature the Hulk, but still, like, that is very different from what we've gotten so far. Especially because, like, and I bring this up a lot because it really bugs me, outside of Infinity War, that one scene in Infinity War, I do not believe there is a single scene of Spider-Man fighting a villain swinging through Manhattan or Brooklyn or just like the streets. He's always in Germany or on the Statue of Liberty, which is fine, cool scene, but like the whole thing with Spider-Man, a lot of it is that he can really do a lot of crazy cool stuff, and they managed to do this. And like Spider-Man 3, the scene where he fights Harry is great. Like, it's not the best Spider-Man movie, but like that scene is taking advantage of a lot of the cool things about what if Spider-Man fought a flying villain and he was in the middle of the city, so he was able to web swing around and hide and do all kinds of other cool stuff. I've complained about this a lot. I think like the Into the Spider-Verse movies did a great job with this, but I do think with Tom Holland Spider-Man, it's like, why hasn't he done that? And now he gets to, I assume, so that's cool. I will say Brand New Day is a Spider-Man comic story. Like, it was named the arc that followed Spider-Man making a deal with Mephisto. None of these characters, from what I can remember, feature in Brand New Day, and that's fine, but that's just something to, point out. Like, none of these guys showing up makes me go, oh, they are doing this thing for Brand New Day. And I'll say, none of these guys together reminds me of any specific Spider-Man arc, and I'm not the biggest Spider-Man fan. It's kind of like with Civil War. if you didn't know the title of the movie, but you started seeing the actors that were casting, you're like, oh, are they doing Civil War for that third Captain America movie? And that's not what we're getting here. None of that is this. But yeah, so now I'm going to talk about what I think the movie could be about, and like based on characters that we pretty much know are in it. Every scooper and leaker has suggested these couple of characters are in this movie. We can kind of put together some things that I think are interesting that I'll talk about here. So if you don't want to watch that, if you don't want to be even spoiled a little bit, then feel free to turn this off, or go to the end, watch the Nebula bit at the end. Or if you have Nebula, if you're watching this on Nebula, that bit's not there because sponsor segments don't make it onto Nebula. So if you don't like those, the great way to get rid of them is to go to Nebula. Go.nebula.tv/thenandocut is the way to get a discount. This is not but I'm just saying, Nebula, pretty cool. But anyway, so let's talk spoilery things. 3 or 4 characters were more or less, I wouldn't say confirmed because they're not confirmed, but they've been reported by multiple leakers. And I want to say the production designer, someone in the art department for this movie, posted some specific covers to Spider-Man comics that would suggest these characters are going to be there. So let's go from top to bottom, most likely. And like I said, I don't believe any of these will be spoilers. I think a couple of them will be grunts that get taken down early in the movie. And I think one of them will be like a big bad in the movie, but like we'll know who that is. He'll be on the poster. And he'll be in the first trailer, probably. But first one, starting in the most likely, just based on all of the reporting, Mr. Negative, a character that most people know from the video games, but was introduced in Spider-Man Brand New Day. So like that makes sense. He's a character a lot of people like, and like I said, he has not been in any of the material yet. It's interesting that people think this might be what Steven Yeun is doing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's reasons why that's a little weird. Mostly it's that the character is traditionally Chinese and Steven Yeun is Korean. However, one thing that I didn't say, I think in my fan casting Steven Yeun video, is like Mr. Negative is a Chinese man. However, Martin Lee, which is Mr. Negative's name, Mr. Negative is not Martin Lee. Martin Lee, I believe, is someone who died, and Mr. Negative took on that identity, kind of like Don Draper in Mad Men, and he was like, I'm Martin Lee. So technically, I guess he could be a Korean man taking the place of a Chinese name. I don't know. This isn't my area, but like this is technically he's not the same character. So that if you wanted to write a way around that, that's a way you could do it. Other villains. Seems like Tarantula is in this movie, which is a fun one because that's one of the ones that I suggested in my pitch for Spider-Man 4. Tarantula, very jobbery Spider-Man villain, like a guy who has a gimmick and will be probably hired by some mobster, perhaps Mr. Negative. And if you want to hear who Mr. Negative is, watch my Steven Yeun video because I explain it there. But basically, like, he's a guy with superpower to use negative energy to corrupt people and whatever. He has like an alternate persona because he seems normal, but then he's Mr. Negative, and it's a negative of like a photograph. And he is a crime boss in New York City. So if that character works the same way, he would totally hire someone like Tarantula, who I believe is like an assassin or some sort of like muscle for hire, who has lots of acrobatics and I believe like spikes or something. I don't remember. There's another character, Boomerang, who I did not mention in my original pitch because I thought that was a little too out there, but he is one of the superior foes of Spider-Man, which my version of the movie had a different one in there. And like, if you wanted to spin this off or like make that story, which is very fun, this would be a good way to introduce a couple of those jobbers. So maybe this would be how you do it. And Boomerang is like a Spider-Man villain who, very much like Captain Boomerang, throws trick boomerangs. You've also got Tombstone, Lonnie Lincoln, who showed up in the Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man show, although very differently. They did the kind of, it's kind of like Tombstone's origin, but it's very different, but now he's kind of the Tombstone you'd maybe recognize. Traditionally, different origin, but same deal. Indestructible skin, another crime boss. I would say he functions as more of a crime boss than like an enforcer or hired muscle. So like, I could see a world where him and Mr. Negative are the two crime bosses at odds. And there's like a gang war, which is a word that's been thrown around a lot in what people think this movie might be about. He feels like the character, like Scorpion could do that too. But just looking at Spider-Man comics, Negative and Tombstone are the two most likely characters. Like Scorpion is very much a hired muscle or like a character who joins a team whereas Tombstone's a leader. There's one more. He's a character named Ramrod. I know nothing about him. I don't believe he's a Spider-Man villain. This seems like pure, like, muscle. In the same vein, maybe, as even, like, who is it in the Iron Man 3? Like, that character was Cold Blood, technically, but, like, he was just a henchman with a name, and I think that's fine. But something that I noticed I think is interesting here, so you got Punisher, Mr. Negative, Tombstone. Those are 3 characters that are black and white. Now, could just be a coincidence. Another character that's traditionally black and white, sometimes Spider-Man, symbiote. Another character that's traditionally black and white, sometimes Scorpion, has also taken on the symbiote. You know, Boomerang, not so much. Tarantula, I don't really know. And that other guy who I just said, whose name I've already forgotten, I don't know. But, like, it's interesting that a couple of principal characters in this movie share a color scheme, which is like, you know, who cares? But maybe that's the point. Like, maybe Tombstone in this movie gets his powers from Mr. Negative. Like, maybe he's a guy, and people probably get angry at this because he's a character with albinism, and, like, that's, you know, he's a kind of representative of that. But if, like, let's say they did the thing where his new power, his new origin is Mr. Negative, negatives him, turns him into a villain, and that gives him this appearance, that's totally possible. And then people also suggested, hey, if you want to do Savage Hulk, one way to do that would be to have Mr. Negative take over the Hulk, use him as a bad guy. Makes total sense. But another thing that I think is kind of interesting is, like, we have Scorpion now, and Michael Mando teased this on, like, his Instagram, the comic Scorpion, like, traditional Scorpion costume, and then Mac Gargan, the character he's playing, but as Venom. There have been a bunch of Venoms, but at least definitely the second most known Venom besides Eddie Brock. Because it's interesting to me, because now we have 2 characters, Spider-Man and Scorpion, who have had the symbiote. It's just like, just throwing this out there. What if Mr. Negative gets his powers in this movie? Because traditionally he gets them from experiments on the Dark Force and Light Force and, like, things this comic has not introduced, and you didn't need to know what they were to understand Mr. Negative. It was a little bit like, oh yeah, it's that thing that Cloak and Dagger have, but he's got it now in him. But, like, what if he has some sort of, like, maybe he's an avatar for the symbiote, or maybe he has, like, a special bond with the symbiote, maybe some blood, kind of like Carnage, where, like, he's a little more in sync with his symbiote version. And the way that this Mr. Negative, instead of using the negative force or dark force or whatever to corrupt people, he just corrupts them by using his symbiote, and the symbiote takes over Tombstone, the symbiote takes over Hulk, the symbiote takes over Scorpion. That, I think, could be a story. And then the symbiote takes over Spider-Man at some point, and it doesn't seem like Spider-Man's going to be in, I mean, if he was going to be in Doomsday, I don't know when he'd film it, because he's filming this now, but if he's in Secret Wars, he's got the black suit, that's when the black suit shows up. So if you do want to set that up here, maybe that's Mr. Negative's deal in these movies. I don't know. That is just a, like, theory I'm kind of playing around with here after hearing about Scorpion and just thinking about, like, oh, if Mr. Negative is the big bad, Negative, like, symbiote, those ideas are similar and they kind of look similar. That could work. Again, just a little theory I'm throwing out. Also, I will say, in my pitch for Spider-Man 4, Tombstone was the big bad. So I hope they give him a big role. People would recognize him from Into the Spider-Verse, and he didn't really do too much there. But he is different from a lot of other mobster characters in Spider-Man, like, mythology, so I would like to see him represented that way. But I don't know. I'm excited. This could be very cool. And you know what else is cool? You've already heard me talk about it before, but let's talk about it again. Nebula. And obviously, yes, the character Nebula is very exciting, but I'm actually talking about the subscription streaming service that I and a bunch of my YouTube friends helped to create. And basically, the pitch for my channel on Nebula, all my videos go up early and ad-free on Nebula. So, like, this video, you're watching it right now, it was on Nebula just maybe, like, I don't know, a couple hours before it went live. But, like, my next video on my Nandovi Movies channel, which is what was Phase 5 about, that's going to be up probably, like, a couple weeks early. So, like, you get access to the videos early, ad-free. Lots of other YouTubers you already like, some of them who talk about comics and movies and stuff like that, are already on this platform. You got Patrick Willems, Captain Midnight, Princess Weeks, just added Shea Frillis Productions, who I love, obviously, and we're always adding more. Then we also have originals that we do. These like really high quality productions. Sometimes they're like videos. We've done documentaries. We did a play once. We're doing a series soon that is a scripted drama. It's an anthology in the vein of Twilight Zone and Black Mirror, but instead of being about science fiction stuff, it's about complicated human relationships that take place in New York City. And one of the episodes, called Power Trip, was written by me, and Patrick Willems directed it. And I've been updating you guys in these little bits at the end of the videos as like the production's gone on. So we filmed it, and it looks incredible. The actors like blew me away, but you will see it and you'll know what I'm talking about. I don't have anything I can share right now, but trust me, when that comes up, you'll see it. And I hope we make behind the scenes things so you can see how we made it, because that part is also so cool. So that'll be out sometime in the near future. Can't say exactly when. Until then, you can watch, we just put out a series called Amy's Dead End Dream House by and starring Maggie Mayfish, with a bunch of people playing the weird puppet guys, because it's kind of like a Pee-wee's Playhouse thing. One of them being Paula Tompkins. It's really cool, and it's very fun. And again, it has the feel of one of those children's shows, but for adults, about adult problems, and that is very cool. And we're putting new episodes of that out weekly on Nebula as well. And the best part is, a yearly subscription to Nebula is a steal at $60 a year, it's $5 a month. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, you can get Nebula for just $36 a year. That is $3 a month. It is an incredible deal. Go check it out. Thank you for listening. So thank you everybody for watching. That's all I got. Stay safe.